going. Mm-hmm. It's Thursday, February 25th, 2021. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, we are talking about leftovers. If you have any idea for a Thursday show, for the love of Satan, tell us. All right. I guess if you have an open bit.
Not only are we low on show ideas for especially Mondays and Thursdays, as usual, we're low on opening bits because we don't go anywhere or do anything.
Yeah,
so...
like anything that could happen to me is something that primarily happens on the internet, usually because I read an article or in social media that Scott has also read, and either
that would be a news. That would be news or thing of day. It wouldn't be opening bit.
Exactly, opening bit would be like, so I was riding my bike, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it has to be something that I don't know. But so I guess the only thing I got for an opening bit is that it's becoming, when we first got locked in the house, right? I guess I worked in the house all summer.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I didn't have a problem with this particular thing, right? But now, as the winter is ending, the Earth moves, right?
Oh, are you having sunlight coming in on your monitor?
Yeah, so the sunlight's come in and hitting me in the face at earlier in the day, and it's hard to work.
But just close your blinds.
They are closed.
Then they're not blinds.
Well, they're not. They're not.
You need curtains and blinds. There's multiple layers you need in there.
Well, we never had those in this room, in the office room. We have them in the bedroom, right? We don't have them in this room.
Yeah. Or in this room here, we got some ones that are. They diffuse the light enough to where no amount of it can generate glare if they're down, but it doesn't block all the light.
Your window faces like a building. There's no light coming in.
No, there is a narrow channel, and just every spring, like around this time of year, that channel where there's an unblocked view all the way past Queensboro Plaza Station, a beam of light would come in, and previously it would hit my monitor directly. But the way we've shifted around, it kind of goes between our two monitors now, but it is gone if I just close that little blind.
The point is I can't get someone to come install a blind or a curtain. If I could do that, then I could go to the office. It's like there's no...
Install it yourself. It's real easy.
It's not that easy.
It's real easy. I've installed many of them. I almost said, I'll come and help you. But no, that's the whole point. That I can't. That's the problem. It is,
in my previous apartment, I installed it on my own, and it was not the greatest. It was a little dodgy.
I don't know. Maybe I'm better at that, or maybe you have a weird window.
I think the problem is that a lot of these, in these apartments, right, the space on top of the windows is just like a concrete thing.
I only mount things to the sides on either side of the window, and in this apartment,
I had a tension rod. I guess I could do the tension rod again.
Not a tension rod. I put mounting brackets on both edges of the window on the sides, and then I mounted the thing on those brackets.
There's already a rolly thing with brackets in that spot. There's
so put something in front of the rolly thing. Or take the rolly thing down. I just tore those rolly things down. I tore the shitty things out, and I buried them in the back of a closet. And if we ever move out of this apartment, I'm going to put them back and take my nice curtains with me.
Well, that's the story, is that it's hard to work late in the day with the sun.
It is. It's funny, though, because I have a similar problem of I was planning, like literally right after PAX East, I was going to hire one of those services to have someone come and mount a TV on the wall so I could make more floor space in the living room.
I know a guy. You gotta get my guy.
And I was also going to have them mount that monitor we have in the kitchen on the wall there, so it doesn't have to sit.
My guy Abe, he'll hook you up.
That's exactly what I was going to do. I had this plan, these 3 screens I want to mount, because I could do that by myself, but fuck if I want to do that by myself. And also, unlike a curtain, the consequences of me doing it poorly are far more severe.
Yeah, my guy.
I don't want to wake up one night to, what was that sound, to discover that my TV is broken.
I mean, in my previous apartment, he hung the bike on the wall, and it never fell on me while I was sleeping.
Yeah.
Right? and he's hung 2 TVs on the wall that have not fallen down on any people.
Yep. I want to mount
these 2 long shelves on the wall in this office here, and they're not moving.
I was gonna mount ski racks way up by the ceiling. I was like, I got like 10 things. I got like 7 things I want to mount, and literally, I have this to-do box in my Google Keep that lists like mount the things, and it lists these 7 things. And the date when I was gonna do this is the weekend after PAX East. So here I am, with the old TV still sitting there on the thing, and also breaking. That TV is starting to die. It's getting dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, and the whatever LED drives the optical audio out just doesn't light up anymore.
Okay.
Yep. So, guess we can get right into news and such. It's Thursday. It's the lounge. We can talk about anything.
Sure. Your lounge.
I have got
lounge. Let's do a Thursday show on lounges. Can you talk about the whole episode about lounges?
I can talk a lot about lounges. In fact, I have a lot of opinions on what I like about lounges compared to bars. Like I prefer
like a lounge in your house, or
I'm talking about like a lounge that you would go to and have drinks in a
There's
city.
a lot of things that count as lounges.
Yeah. Lounge. I like lounge wear, like leisure clothes. I like lounges, chase lounges in particular.
Lounging.
I like lounging. What I like the most, I think, an adjacent topic there is sunken conversation pits.
What's the etymology of the word lounge anyway?
Lounge probably.
Could be French.
It's probably Latinic if I had to guess. I'll look it up right now. Lounge etymology.
I'm already Googling. Early 16th century.
It's got to be Latinic. To move indolently. I'll tell you, if there's a
lungus,
a slow, lazy person.
Allongier, lengthen.
Yep.
So there is some French Latin there.
Yep, lungus, a slow, lazy person, which came from an earlier term, longus, an idle, stupid dreamer.
Okay.
So, if I'm going to do something, there's 2 ways I like to do it, energetically or indolently. I guess grudgingly is the 3rd way. Sometimes I do things grudgingly.
Anyway, all right, so here's the news. There's a lot going on with this news, even though it's a K-pop news. None of the discussion around this news has to do with actual K-pop, really.
All right, I skim this and don't understand it, so.
And a lot of what it is some of the things are I can't confirm. They're just because obviously A, I don't speak Korean. B, I've never been to Korea, and C, I got to take some hearsay from people who claim to on the internet, right? But here's the deal. Going back in K-pop time, right? Well, first of all, just some foundational work, right? If you are a celebrity in the United States, you can commit relatively heinous crimes and maintain a career, right? Yep. You can be a rapist. You can
literally commit murder and lose a civil case.
People. Right. And it's like the first one that always comes to mind for me are people like Mike Tyson, right? Yep. And you can rehabilitate your career and get extra chances that you may or may not deserve.
Yep, there's a reason why in American lexicon of celebrity, there's the concept of like the apology tour. Like that's a thing.
And my opinion on that is basically like, yes, people should have second chances, but not until everyone gets a first chance. Right?
Yep. Reconciliation comes after consequences.
You give somebody else a second chance. You just denied someone a first chance, right? Because there's a limited number of chances. So give everyone a first chance, then we can talk about second chances. Anyway, in South Korea, the culture is much, much less lenient in these regards. If you commit or like not even necessarily convicted of a crime in like jail, but like if you just like got in trouble doing something, slightly bad, your career is basically over. You have to, at minimum, extremely apologize and go into hiding and disappear from the public spotlight for an extended period of time until you believe it is safe to return, right? And sometimes this is warranted, right? Because people do still commit heinous crimes, and then their careers are over, right? And that's kind of good.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, people do things that basically shouldn't even be crimes. So recently, a member of the boy group B2B, right, got caught with weed. And in South Korea, you think weed is criminalized here, right?
Yep. Holy crap there.
Right?
Actually, in much of Asia.
basically career over permanently, right? It's like, meanwhile, if he had just lived in the US, he could weed it up, no problem.
Yep.
Like,
And in fact, depending on what
other
state he's
countries-
in, he could do it live on TV and no one could say anything.
Right. So that's, there's a whole, we could go down that road. But regardless, this opens two doors, right? Door A, if a celebrity does something, right, then, somebody could, report it and ruin their career, and they may or may not deserve that. But also, people can falsely, right, accuse celebrities of wrongdoing, if perhaps they're just trolls and they hate that celebrity for whatever reason.
Yep.
Some teenager, and there's like a band they don't like, they can accuse them, and it might be hard to disprove, and you could seriously disrupt somebody's career just by making some accusations. Also, they don't have freedom of speech there. Like like, you want to talk about censorship, like their TV is literally censored, right? The government says, no, you can't show that on TV. And also, you can't just comment whatever you want on the internet there, right? If you comment and you say like you spread false rumors on the internet there, you can like get sued, and whoever you spread false rumors about can take you to court, and you could be in actual real trouble for doing that. Which is good and also bad, but that's not even the topic we're going to yet.
Yep.
All right.
It looks like it's actually a little bit better than the defamation rules in the UK from skimming this, because it does separate defamation upon false claims from true claims, which is complicated and weird. And I don't know enough about Korean law, and I'm trying to like learn more about this now.
There was actually a YouTube video about that particular subject with some lawyers answering questions, that I could maybe find the link to again, maybe. But this is the topic, right? So recently, over time, there have been accusations of various idols, right? Because idols are usually people who are, maybe high school age, maybe just college age, right? So they're still pretty close to their school days. And there were at least a few idols who, when they were in school, were bullies and shitty people, right? Who would harass classmates and abuse classmates to various degrees. And then they just happened to end up being celebrities after school, right? And in Korea, bullying is not just like, light teasing, right? If someone says bullying, we're talking about like, usually hitting someone, right? Like really, like demeaning and treating someone like a piece of shit on a regular basis.
I mean,
right?
like that is how a lot of bullying is here too, but there is
exactly.
But there's in Korea in particular, there's a lot of news you can read about this. Like, don't think I'm trying to claim to be an expert on Korea. Bullying, especially in the equivalent of high school, is a specific societal problem that's trying to be addressed there.
Yeah,
like,
it's a big problem, and it's like I've seen some people who have said that and I haven't seen any data for this, and I don't believe it. That they used to have corporal punishment in schools, right? Used to just beat the kids in Korea a lot more recently than you were able to beat the kids in the U.S. I guess maybe or maybe not, right?
Yep.
It wasn't that long ago that you.
Fun fact: I was beaten in school because I went to a Catholic school.
Sure. But there are people who are saying like, yeah, since that went away, kids now can bully and the teachers can't do anything about it. And I'm like,
yeah, I don't think that's the problem.
I'm pretty sure the kids were bullying before then also.
Yep.
Right?
And also like in America, at least, the teachers could do something, they just don't. And we've talked about that on GeekNights before.
Right. So that's yet another topic, right? But what's happening now is there were a few cases where people, had the victims, right, had the courage to, call out the idols who bullied them accurately, and they ruined people's careers, right? Perhaps deservingly so. But now what has happened is there are floodgates. Like they had to make a mega thread because so many idols have been accused of bullying with varying degrees of, truth or supporting evidence and whatnot, right? Basically, it's like, well, whose career is over now, right?
Yep.
Is it real? Is it not? Is this a troll? Right? Normally, under normal circumstances, you just believe the victims, right? That's the default, right? Believe the victims. But when this is like a special area where it's like, yeah, I want to believe all the victims, of course, but there is such a large culture of anti-fandom, right? Where, and there are so many people who have also been shown to be crying wolf, right? Like there are some people where like they accuse someone of bullying and a whole bunch of people come out and they're like, actually, I was in school with that person. You're full of shit.
Yep.
Right. And so now you can't know. It's harder to believe the victim, no matter how much you want to, right? It's like even if you keep telling yourself to believe the victim, it like all the wolf crying infects your brain.
Yep, the intersection of celebrity and modern connected fan culture makes this a like perfect storm of difficult situation.
So now it's like there's just this flood of constant accusations against various peoples. And it's like, well, is this person bad or not? I saw one the other day, and based on internet, text I read on the internet, which is nothing, right? It seemed like it was false. And there was another one I read today that seems way bad, like it's true, right? Based on the text I read on the internet, which is right. Who knows, right? I never met these people. I don't even speak their language, right? So, now the other interesting thing, and I don't know how true this is, but regardless of whether this is true, part of it is true, and it's very interesting. So in Korea, they have Naver, which is basically Korean Google, right? Webtoon, that thing we talk about frequently, Naver runs that. Naver runs a lot of stuff, but if you're doing a web search in Korea, you're using Naver. You're not using google.com, right? And on the Naver homepage, it's not like the Google homepage where it's just a search box. They list like, here are the top 10 things people are searching for right now, real-time search rankings. And that's kind of a big deal. Like you'll see celebrities be like, woo, I released my song and I was number 5 in the real-time search rankings, right? It's like people are paying attention to that thing more than we pay attention to like Twitter trending topic.
Yep.
Right?
I mean, Twitter trending topic is ignored unless the only time I've ever clicked on one is when I can't fathom what is trending around that word.
Mm-hmm. So a true thing is that they're actually going to be removing, I don't know the exact details because I can't read the homepage, but one of those trending sections is like going to get removed from the Naver homepage. Like they announced this. So someone suggested that it could be possible, right, that the flood of accusations are coming because once that thing is gone, you won't be able to get the attention on your accusation anymore. And people are rushing to make the accusations while that thing is still there. So I don't know if that part is true, but the part about the trending thing being a big deal there and it being removed soon is true. But that's just really fascinating, right? Like imagine if Twitter was like, we're going to remove, Twitter trends next week. What would people do this week in terms of manipulating Twitter trending topics while it was still a thing?
I think the difference is...
How would people's behavior change next week after it was gone?
I think the difference is generally American fan cultures have never been like organized around trying to make things trend. It's mostly been like bots driving that sort of thing, usually for political purposes, or or K-pop stuff often gets forced that way, often from the fans. But I bet nothing would change and nothing would be different because Twitter trends are not the cultural touchstone here that a lot of people seem to think they are.
What if the Google homepage showed you the top 10 things people are searching for right now in real time?
Yep. I wonder what that would look like.
Yeah, I know. There is that other page they have, the Google whatever, Google Trends or whatever, that shows you stuff, but no one goes there, right? Would that change people's behavior?
But this is why this is such a, like, there's so many topics here in this news, because like that micro topic of like fan culture and like organized fan activism for the intellectual property that they happen to enjoy, and how weirdly organized and rabid they're getting about it as time goes on. Like there's a whole week of Geek Nights episodes about just that.
Right. All I can say is that it's one of those cases, much like GameStop, where someone has found a way to push the buttons on their keyboard, right, do nothing. You don't have to leave your chair. You can just push buttons on your keyboard and cause real consequences for real people in the real
Well, I mean, we
world.
had that news the other week where someone added a bunch of poison to the water supply by just touching buttons on a keyboard.
Well, sure, but that was a more difficult button pushing, right?
Oh, apparently it wasn't, but anyway.
Well, for someone who has to have some amount of technological prowess, right? This is literally like you can tweet and cause problems in the world, right?
Yep.
You can sign up for an E-Trade account and push a button and cause GameStop stock to cause Wall Street to panic, right?
Well, it gets down to a fundamental thing.
That power of being able to just eat without that much technological knowledge, just being able to touch your phone in a pattern, right? Just rub the face of your phone and the world changes is so alluring that whenever it's possible, whenever someone finds a way to do that, people will do that.
Well, we talked about this in 2016. We did a panel at a PAX called The Grind. We're talking about grinding in games, but we talked a lot about the problems that arise in any system. Doesn't have to be a game. When the incremental cost of taking an action that has some sort of meaningful effect approaches zero.
Mm-hmm.
Couple that with the way social media lets people organize those basically costless transactions, the costless actions they can take. It's instead of an old day where you would have to hit that button a million times, you can hit a button once and 999,000 other people will each then hit that button once and have the same effect.
Yep. Well, it is a cyberpunk tale, the likes of which GeekNights cannot ignore.
Yep.
And that is the news.
I'm sure we'll be talking about topics and fallout from this for some time to come. So if there was ever a news that was where if we brought up the topic or like this came up in conversation, a random listener or Scott or anyone who knows me would say, wow, that's a really rim thing to be talking about right now. This news would be up there. This would be up there with things like we're talking about how nuclear weapons are made or how to set clocks.
How to make annoying noises.
So
the clock on the trumpet was set improperly.
So this, if you're not, are you familiar, Scott, with the mystery, and I'm making quote fingers here, of Diatlov Pass? Like, have you ever heard of that thing?
No.
Really?
Maybe I do know it, and I just don't know the name of it.
You might. So this is the kind of thing that people tell ghost stories and have conspiracy theories about it, but the thing itself really happened. Basically, in 1959, and I know a lot about this because it's fucking rim, like it's me. What do you want? You'll see why this is up my alley in a minute.
Uh-huh.
A bunch of kids went out on a hike into the wilderness in 1959 in some mountains in Russia, and they never came home. So people were like, they sent a search party to go find out what happened to these kids. And they eventually found in the Diatlov Pass, which is an area they were going to be hiking through, they found their naked, mutilated, radioactive bodies.
Okay. I've not heard this story.
It was the biggest news in 1959. This was a mystery.
I wasn't around then, so.
But so in the Soviet Union, this was a big deal. It was a mystery.
So.
What the fuck happened to these people?
That's an even bigger news than the kids trapped underwater that happened to, when was that? 100 years ago?
Yeah.
It was Thailand, right?
Yeah, God. That feels like it was from a different time, and it feels like it happened right after Diatlov Pass. Anyway, this was a real mystery that was solved it is solved and has been solved for a long time from this is probably what happened standpoint, but there were so many weird attributes of the story that no scientist could say, yes, 100%, this is what explains weird part B.
100% explain anything.
Exactly. Solipsism. Fuck it. Drop the mic. But conspiracy people and UFO people in the 60s were obsessed with this. So,
of course. Why wouldn't you be?
And to this day, people are obsessed with this. There's an article that came out recently, this year, where the part of this that was actually unexplained is pretty definitively explained thanks to Disney's Frozen. The movie. Literally. No joke. Yeah, this article is fascinating. I can break it down pretty quick because I'm a weird nerd. So, here are the things that were strange about the incident when they found their bodies, and I can explain them all with common sense. One, the bodies were all naked. That makes sense. If you get hypothermia, there's a thing called paradoxical undressing. Humans will just take off their clothes.
Okay, that's interesting.
You didn't know that?
I know a lot about hypothermia, but I didn't know that about hypothermia.
Okay, so if you are ever...
Me.
All right, my advice to you, Scott, in case this ever comes up, because I think this might have been important that you didn't know this. If you are ever really cold, and then with nothing changes, you start to feel too warm, and you feel like you should take your clothes off, fucking don't. Your body is lying to you because it's broken.
Mm-hmm.
People who are experiencing hypothermia will literally undress themselves. It's like that is a thing.
Right.
So obviously hypothermia, that's why they were naked. 2, their eyes were missing. Coyotes or something just ate them, like duh. That's like animals will go after the eyes first. But I can see why that would have been creepy. They found these bodies and their eyes were missing and they were naked.
Weren't there other animals chewing on other parts? Or
they were like a little bit.
Bite marks near the eyes or something?
There were some bite marks and things too, but like the eyes were missing from literally every body and people were like weirded out by that. Also remember, some of these things only conspiracy nut jobs were weirded out by. The Soviet researchers who were studying this explained these things pretty straight away. Mystery 3. All the people had suffered severe blunt traumas, like they had been beaten with baseball bats. That was unexplained at the time.
Someone beat them.
One of the theories was they were murdered because they got close to some Soviet military thing or UFOs or whatever. But that's the part they solved. That was the one unsolved part. That was actually unsolved.
Solved that part?
Science has solved that part with the movie Frozen.
Frozen solved that part.
Yes. So
okay.
Part 4. The bodies were found scattered across a wide area. Like a few of them were found way down in the woods. A few of them were found near their campsite.
For help, and they died in different places.
Yep, the ones who weren't beaten to death were running to get help, or at least get somewhere in the trees to then try to make a fire and warm up before they died. Some of them were dragging bodies or trying to rescue the other people who were hurt, etc.
I'd be surprised if they all died in the same spot. Like if you're sitting there with your 8 friends and they're all dead, are you just gonna keep sitting there? It's like
yep. Yeah, if you find a campfire with 8 skeletons sitting around it, that is suspicious as fuck.
Yeah, that's way more suspicious than some bodies around.
All right, the bodies were radioactive, which was ostensibly that seems to be true. That the bodies there was radiation.
Soviet Russia, there's uranium just in the woods.
Nope. So there's a lot of
bananas, all bananas.
There's a lot of nut job conspiracy theories about that. The answer is pretty simple. This is another thing that anyone who camps would already know. Camping lights are radioactive. There's thorium in them. That's how they work.
Well, in 1950 something, yeah.
Even today, you can get camping lights unless you're
not if it's a lithium LED thing.
No, but if it's powered by kerosene.
Sure, but no, you're not using those. In 1958, you are.
Yeah, but even in modern times, there are often use cases for a kerosene lantern because they also provide heat.
Maybe.
And they're way brighter than LEDs. For how much fuel and weight you have to carry with you. Depends. Anyway, the way camp lanterns work is they don't actually. It's not the fire that is providing the light. The fire is actually really small. There's a metal mantle around it that gets heated up by the fire, and then it radiates light. They use thorium and other nonsense that happens to glow with more visible light and less infrared light. That's that. That explains the radiation, but the radiation is also the thing that the UFO nutjobs are all obsessed with. So this article explains why the bodies looked like someone had taken a baseball bat to them. Originally, common sense people assumed...
What happens to your flesh when you get frozen?
Nope. So common sense people had assumed there must have been an avalanche. That they were sleeping in their tents, an avalanche happened. They were pushed down the mountain and hurt severely, and then they tried to make a fire, get help their friends, and slowly and one by one froze to death.
To find the bodies?
Weeks, months.
You'd see evidence of an avalanche, I think. Right?
So that's where it gets complicated. Possibly not, because avalanches are not that well understood. Especially
you see that up on the mountain there wasn't enough snow and there was too much snow down by the
avalanches aren't around. There was snow there and now it's down here. They're more around a surface in layering of snow shifts And if you're not an expert, and depending on the terrain, like that is not as straightforward as you would think. But also, all the data we had as of like last year showed that avalanches don't cause that severity of blunt trauma. Like they don't beat you up like you were beaten with a baseball
buried
bat.
in snow and suffocate and freeze.
Exactly. So how come these people looked like they were beaten to death, and then some of them froze to death? Like, and one, an avalanche couldn't really cause that, and two, the terrain they were on shouldn't be able to have an avalanche, at least not to the scale that would have been necessary to cause this disaster. Effectively, the snow that was used, the effects in the movie Frozen, led to developments to do avalanche simulations that were much more precise and accurate than we had done previously. And researchers were able to simulate the kinds of conditions in this particular region and determined that in the right conditions, it's rare but not impossible, an avalanche and that type of terrain, which would seem impossible even to experts, could happen suddenly and would cause that kind of blunt trauma. Specifically.
Okay.
They were killed by a freak, like 1 in a million avalanche, because where they happened to camp was a place that, by all knowledge of experts at that time and until recently, should not be able to have an avalanche. They miscalculated. They just got really unlucky and set up camp in the wrong spot and were murdered by a ridiculous avalanche. And this article...
a good reason to stay inside in the winter and not go skiing or do anything else stupid on the mountain.
So, sorry.
Don't ski.
Sorry, weird nerds. It wasn't a natural uranium reactor that formed in this ravine due to the shape of the mountain, nor was it UFOs.
Don't ski, don't hike. Stay inside.
I feel like we could probably just skip the other news and go straight to things of the day.
We don't need more. We don't need more news.
I'll save that other news for later. I was going to talk about Twitter super follows.
I was gonna do that on Monday.
Yeah, we'll do that. That'll be a Monday.
There's several Twitter newses, right?
Yep. I got one article that summarized them all, and I got a lot to say about it. But anyway, things of the day. So, a few of you, more than one person, and fewer than 10 people have been commenting on my beard over the course of this, because I generally don't wear a beard, and during quarantine, I've been wearing a beard. So, the annoyance of a beard is that it's actually, assuming you are lucky enough, if you want a beard, to have the kind of hair that will grow into a nice beard, because some people just can't grow a beard, even if they want one.
That's true.
Assuming, like, you're past that point, the other problem with a beard is if you just let a beard grow naturally, you're going to look like a deranged mountain man eventually.
Yeah.
You might look like someone who knows a lot about POSIX and Unix. Like,
Yeah.
But if you try to trim a beard, it is very easy to fuck it up, and then you have to get rid of the whole thing. Yeah. Beards are actually they're much the reason why people who style hair have to get certifications and get some training is, one, for racism that we'll talk about in another episode someday, but two, because it is a skill. Like, dealing with hair styling it is, it's really difficult. There's a reason why everyone's hair looks like shit right now, because we can't go get haircuts from people who know what they're doing, and it's really hard to do that right at home unless either someone you know is an expert, or two, you have a really simple hairstyle that you can achieve without having to have much knowledge or skill. So I had to learn how to take care of my beard better without just going to a barber to do it for me. And of all the videos and things I found, this one's the best. This is a 10-minute video that will explain in very specific detail exactly how to shape a beard if you want to have a beard kind of like the one that I'm sporting right now. And I learned a bunch of tricks, and it made it way easier to manage my beard during quarantine.
My major beard problem was not a problem with the beard itself. It was face skin problems.
Oh, this talks about that too, about beard oil, all the different ways to keep face skin.
I tried that shit. It didn't work. Or it partially worked.
Yeah.
So.
It depends a lot on your care.
To take care of my face skin, it was much easier to shave the beard and rub shit on my face skin.
Yep, I'll get stuff on my chest hair area, but I'm very lucky in that I don't have any face skin problems at all.
I don't either. If I keep shaving my face and applying things to my face.
But the one takeaway, if you don't watch this video and you are the kind of person who has a beard, but like the beard just feels like it looks messy and shitty, it's shaping a beard requires kind of constant upkeep. But people who have beards that you might think, oh, they look really good, it's because they're literally doing this like every couple days. You can't just have a beard unless you're really lucky. You actually got to do stuff to it.
I think the other thing is that, regardless of your shaping, right, is like you have to start the beard, you do just sort of have to like let it go until it reaches point X.
Yep.
And then you do the shape.
This video actually talks about that. Let it go until it hits that point. Because if you try to shape it before then, it's going to look terrible.
Exactly. You just got to let it go until you have the beard. Then you can start doing it, and then you have to keep doing it.
Yep. But the main reason I make this my thing of the day is that everything they tell you in this video, you can do at home if you have any sort of clipper and any way to shave yourself. Like, you don't need specialized equipment or like anything super fancy.
You need something sharp.
Yep. And it's aimed at you doing it to yourself in front of a mirror. It doesn't require another person to help you.
That is something that's different about a beard versus hair, right? It's all in the front.
Yep.
Hair, you got to do the back.
It solved the problem, and it was an obvious solution for me that I always have of I try to make the two lines like the same size on both sides of my face, and then I make one of them too short. I try to make the other one match. I made it too short, and then the whole beard's gone.
Yep.
I have avoided that for months thanks to this video.
Oh, good. All right. So I got a thing of the day here.
Yep.
All around the world, people are playing sports that they shouldn't.
Yep.
I guess there's nothing I could do to stop them, really. So I'll whatever. One of the sports, a sport I don't pay attention to often, but I have some amount of respect for, is rugby. And there is a team of rugby players that I didn't know existed called the Kaiviti Silktails from Fiji. They're the Fiji professional rugby team. And under normal circumstances, they would play in, I guess it's the NSWRL. I guess that stands for New South Wales Rugby League, I imagine.
I'm pretty confident you are correct.
And the coach of the Kaiviti Silktails is a person named Wes Naiguama. I think I'm pronouncing the name correctly because I heard an announcer at a rugby game say it on YouTube. And he is a famous former rugby player.
Yep, that's always dangerous though, because I literally had a teacher in high school when we were learning about Goethe who pronounced it Goeth. And I had another teacher at RIT, a professor, who also pronounced it Goeth.
Yep.
So,
but I know for a fact though that, like, for example, if you're a hockey announcer, you got to pronounce a lot of names, French Canadian names, European names. And I know for a fact that the hockey announcers go and they talk to the players or have someone else do it, and they get the correct pronunciations and practice them, at least if they're any good at the job, right?
Yep.
So I trust a sports announcer pronunciation more than a teacher pronunciation. Anyway, so this team wanted to play, in the season that was happening in Australia, right? But they're in Fiji. So what the fuck they gonna do, right? With this pandemic going on, right? They got a situation. The pandemic, I guess, is less bad down there, but it's not non-existent. They still got a quarantine and such. So the plan was this. They would go to Sydney, right? I assume they had like a flight or a boat, something just to themselves, right? They went to Sydney and they went to this hotel. And they stayed in that hotel, right? Pretty much with no one else for 14 days. And they quarantined for 14 days to prove that they didn't bring any COVID from Fiji. And then they can go about engaging in their rugby play according to whatever protocols that league has set up, right? That seems all perfectly normal, right? For 2021.
Yep.
So what the hell about this is a thing of the day. Here's what it is. After they finish their quarantine, right? The hotel architecture just happened to be really conducive to this.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're right. Look at that.
The team came out, and to thank the hotel staff for taking care of them in their 14 days of isolated quarantine in the Sydney hotel, where presumably no one else was staying other than them and the staff. And presumably the staff weren't leaving either, because I guess they must have been quarantined in there with them, right? Otherwise, it makes no sense. The staff could have just brought in some COVID, right? they sang the staff. I'm sure they paid them also, but I hope they did. But they sang the staff this congratulatory song, or thank you song, I guess. And it's like, yeah, let me see your professional sports team sing, right? Yeah.
God, I just imagine like trying to hear the Rangers sing something together. Kreider can play the piano at least.
They can barely sing like a holiday song to play on the Jumbotron. How are they going to sing a thank you song to the hotel staff? But yeah, really good singing here. They could form a little choir on the side. I think.
Yeah.
A little chorus. Yeah.
Cool biz. In the meta moment, but can't fucking go anywhere. So let's get right into it. Leftovers. One, it's a food show. Somehow we haven't talked about this. We got another food show.
Yeah, leftovers could refer to a lot of other things that are left over, but we're talking about food leftovers.
Yep, food leftovers.
The common use of the word is when you had some food and then you didn't eat all of it. There's some leftover food and you eat it later, or you don't eat it later.
Yep, that latter one's important. But there are two distinct classes of leftovers. Leftovers you get from a restaurant, like a doggy bag, and food you made.
Yep. And you made too much.
But what's interesting about this topic, I think, like the reason why it actually kind of makes sense to talk about it now is that if I look at my life, my entire childhood, leftovers were really important because as a family, like my parents were busy and like cooking food was a pain in the ass and we were like, didn't always have time. Leftovers were a great way to plan meals in such a way that they didn't have to cook as much for a family. And then in RIT,
she would cook one night and then 2 days later, we would eat the food from 2 days previous.
Yep.
She doesn't have to cook again. It's like, yeah, why should, if you cook, even if a smaller portion or a larger portion doesn't significantly increase or decrease the cooking effort, depending on what you're cooking, obviously. But, it's like, if I'm making cookies, for example, right, putting more flour into the mixer doesn't take longer. I can make more cookies in the same amount of time as long as I don't have to do a second mix, right?
So then leftovers became extremely important to me personally when I was at RIT because I was poor as shit and couldn't even afford food. So making a meal that was big enough to eat like 3 more times was really important to my survival.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would plan my meals, or like I'd cook that giant beef bolognese like spaghetti thing, and you and I would eat it for like 3 or 4 days sometimes. Get a little dodgy toward that 4th day.
Regardless, that's how it goes.
And that continued into like our lives in Beacon when we had to commute because we didn't have time. Like our whole life was structured around let's cook few meals that can then be re-eaten on later days so we don't have to cook every single day. Because we had to take a train home for an hour and then record Geek Nights because back then we did Geek Nights 4 nights a week.
Yeah, you get that crock pot going, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to feed you for like, a few days, right?
But
and
then,
the thing is, there's a question of like, when is it's sort of an arbitrary distinction of like, when is it leftovers and when is it just meal prep, right? Because that's what a lot of people, I know a lot of people is like, I've even heard of like families doing this where like, they'll do meal prep, they'll spend, there was a guy I worked with years ago, at least 10 years ago. And his whole family would like, parents, siblings on Sunday, they would do meal prep and cook a shit ton of food and like fill their fridge with cooked meals. And I don't even know if they would eat one of those meals on Sunday. It would just be, and then the rest of the week, they wouldn't cook anything. They would just be eating those, for lunch, dinner, whatever.
My line, I have 2 lines there, I think. Like when by default, everything is food prep. It is leftovers if you ate some of it and then you put the rest of it away, like after you ate that. Like you get a big casserole out, you're eating a bunch of it, you look at what's left and you package up, put it back in the fridge, leftovers.
Right. Well, the ultimate leftover is when you have a family feast of some kind, a Thanksgiving, Seder coming up, right? Some kind of holiday feast, right? And you make stuff during those feasts, like a whole damn turkey or a whole big blob of potato.
Gallon of stuffing.
Yeah, you make like a pile of food, right? And then people just sort of serve themselves from that buffet family style. And there's gotta be leftover. It's unavoidable unless you invite way too many families. And that's the ultimate leftover because that is the tastiest food.
Well, because also it's usually the special food that you don't make that often in your normal life. Like I like stuffing. I don't make stuffing like that often.
It's also conducive to reheating.
Exactly.
Usually.
But where something also becomes leftover is even if you did the meal prep, if all you really like ate some of it, but maybe you like cut it in half first and put one half in the fridge and ate one half right away. If the only thing you have to do to it is just reheat it, might also just be considered leftovers. But if it's like you've got to actually do a primary cooking or a primary kitchen thing to it other than just reheating it, then it might have been more meal prep.
Right, because like you might make meatballs and then you might sauce up half the meatballs and then just put some bare meatballs in the fridge. And those are still, I think, an ingredient, right? And they're still an ingredient because when you finally go to eat them, hopefully they don't go bad. You might, for example, put them on a bread and make a meatball sub, which wouldn't be a leftover, right? Because the first time you use the original meatballs for some other dish, you know?
And then, well, basically, in terms of my life, though, like, get back to what I started with, why I think this is an interesting topic right now. As we moved to the city and, like, I didn't have to commute, and there's more, like, local grocery stores, and I can walk to places and food delivery and everything, I got to the point to where we didn't, like, leftovers, I liked them, but they weren't that important because we tended to start buying a lot of food to cook fresh and cooking a meal that is enough for both of us. Like, we didn't generate as many leftovers, and there wasn't as much time pressure in my life where I needed to make sure there were leftovers.
Well,
but then COVID happened, and now leftovers are an important part of my life again because I got to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner in this apartment 7 days a week.
Yeah, there's a few things going on there, right? Is like, depending on the number of people you have, right? If you only got one person, oh, I got hiccups. If you only got one person, right, portion sizes in the U.S. are going to be too much for a meal, right? So it's really
unless you make a sad meal. Remember that RIT where I'd cook like, I'd heat up a can of green beans and eat like a ham steak.
But it's like, even if you go on the internet and you search like meals for one, like it is really hard to cook a meal for one person, one serving, right?
Yeah. Breakfast is doable, not lunch and dinner as much.
Yeah, it's like, you know, you could make one sandwich, but it's like you bought ingredients for that sandwich, and those ingredients you can't really buy, you know, a number of slices of cheese for one sandwich.
Yep. If you're making sandwiches for one and you buy some ham, you're having ham sandwiches for a week.
You go to the deli, you're like, I want 1/8 of a pound. It's like, you get
when we were at RIT one time in Wegmans, I did actually get 1/8 of a pound of sliced ham and 1/8 of a pound of cheese because I could not afford to buy more food.
Oh no.
Those were rough times.
Anyway, but yeah, once you got two people, it's like there's a lot of meals you can cook that are 2 servings, right?
Yeah.
If I get a blue apron, you know, we're doing the meal boxes, see our previous episode, right? All those meals are mostly 2-serving meals. If there's 2 people who are home and eating, cooking and then eating, there's no leftover, right?
Yep.
It's a 2-serving meal.
But it's also very easy to, for 2 people, double that recipe to 4 and then have a meal plus that meal again on another day. But with one person, doubling a meal to 2 is not nearly as straightforward and easy.
Yeah, when I was one person, I would cook a blue apron and I'd eat half and I'd put half in the fridge. Right?
Yep.
If you got 2 people there, that doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
You just eat them both. Leftover doesn't exist.
But above that scale, like I find like the only leftovers that tend to be useful, like when a bunch of people are around, are the one pot or like big mush type meals, like a big stew, a big casserole, a big pizza, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, pizza slice leftover.
Yeah, that's what I had for lunch today because we ordered pizza last night.
Ooh, exciting.
The other kind of leftover, the restaurant one, I don't want to give that short service. We talked about this on GeekNights years ago, but when we first went to Australia, for our like that first PAX Australia, we went to this Mexican restaurant.
2 times today,
right? We went to this Mexican restaurant. Now we both know better now. Never go to a Mexican restaurant in Australia. Holy shit!
We went there because that was the only place that was open at that time of night.
Yep,
pretty much.
We went to this Mexican restaurant late at night on like Phillip Island, and we ordered what we thought was a reasonable amount of food, and it was an inordinate amount of food.
Yep. Way
like
too much food.
They brought us like a comical amount of food.
Yeah.
And then we were like, whatever. Like we just had the whole time we were like, well, we'll just wrap this up, take it back to the hotel and like heat up in the microwave and like, cool. And then at the end of the day, like at the end of the meal, we asked for the check and we're ready to leave. And we asked if we could have a doggy bag. And the waitress is like, no, it's illegal.
And I didn't think she said it was illegal. She just said no.
Yeah. Well, she said no, and she's like, she said we're not allowed to because that restaurant had a policy.
Yeah, I don't remember anything about being illegal.
I encountered
definitely said no and definitely did not let us take the food.
Yep. And we were like, okay, you're just going to throw all this away? And she's like, yep. And I was like, okay. But I encountered this because I've been to Australia many more times. I've encountered this. I've had restaurants tell me it was illegal straight up, like all sorts of nonsense. The deal is, a lot of countries other than the US have way better food safety rules, though a lot of countries have worse rules. Australia actually is a lot more on target about the dangers of takeaway food from restaurants because a terrifying number of Americans get food poisoning from leftovers. Like, it's a big problem,
Really?
apparently. Yeah.
No, this is news to me. How do you get food poisoning from a leftover?
By not chilling it fast enough. Most people, it sits out on the table for a long time, but they're not home. The difference between being at home and being at a restaurant is that most people, when they eat at a restaurant, have to travel a decent distance to get back home, probably eat dessert and other things. So the food that they are going to take home with them in the doggy bag has been sitting in the danger zone for a significant amount of time. And when they get it home, they're not weird like me. They don't crash cool it before they put it in the fridge. They might let it sit out for a little while, or they put it in the fridge and it takes a long time for it to get to a safe temperature. It's real easy to fuck yourself up with leftovers from restaurants.
Okay.
So in Australia, it's like culturally expected that you wouldn't take food home from restaurants. And many restaurants will tell you they won't let you because they don't trust you to not get food poisoning and then try to come after them for it somehow. In America, if you try to go after a restaurant because the leftovers you took home made you sick, you are not going to win that case.
No, but you'd have to get sick from the food while you're in the restaurant, and you'd have to prove it was the food's fault and nothing else.
And even then, you probably are not going to be able to get any recompense from that restaurant.
Yeah, if you want to get recompense, you have to get burned by coffee that's 1,000 degrees. Right?
Yep. Which again, that case was justified. That specific case.
Exactly. I'm saying it's like it would have to be something so egregious and obvious, like coffee.
I only bring that up because even in the year of our Lord 2021, I hear people misrepresent what happened with that McDonald's case.
It's easy to do.
Yep. But honestly, living in the city, like just for like personal anecdote, living in New York City, leftovers from restaurants are one of my favorite things because I can get home real quick and I know food safety. I am confident that I can safely transport those leftovers home and reheat them later.
I mean, I just put them in the fridge immediately as soon as I get home, and I never really thought about the food safety aspect of it, but I guess it hasn't been a problem because most of the time, even pre-pandemic, the leftovers from restaurants would have been delivered to my house anyway. So I'd eat them and then they'd go they wouldn't even have time to be in the danger zone traveling home. They're already home.
Yep. Because that's another thing that's changed in my life. I don't know about you, but definitely as I've lived in New York City, with just no more time pressure in my life, but also, at least not from commuting, but also as I ate at better restaurants and had a little more money, fancier and better places tend to have smaller portions when you eat out. So leftovers are less of a thing. And the kinds of places I get leftovers from are the kinds of leftovers that are very easy to safely reheat. We're talking about things like dumplings or a pile of Indian food.
Yep. Well, it's like they're also, right, because of the cost of delivery and eating out, right? I kind of actually want the extra food, right? So like if I order Indian food, right, I will order samosa and they give you 2 samosas, right? I'll order some sort of meal that will be dumped onto rice for eating,
which is already usually at least 2 people's worth of food,
right? And then maybe some naan and maybe a mango lassi, right? So the first time when I eat the food immediately, I eat one of the samosa, right? I'll eat some of the stuff on rice, whatever the food I got was, right? Some sort of curry or who knows what, and then I'll tear the naan in half and eat half of it because it's enormous, right? And then I'll drink the whole mango lassi,
of course.
And then the second time, it's like, well, I don't have mango lassi anymore. But I have a half a naan. And if I ate all the rice, I could just make more rice in my rice cooker or heat up the old rice. And then I still have the food in a plastic container that I can dump on the rice. And I got another samosa that I can heat up in the toaster oven or the microwave.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's perfect. It's like, yeah, it costs a lot of money, but actually divided by two, very reasonable.
Yeah, like same with the pizza. Like if I'll order a whole pizza, though lately in COVID times, because we can't eat out that often, there's a very limited type of food I can get delivered easily. So whenever there's food like pizza that scratches an itch that I can't easily scratch by going out like I would in pre-COVID times, sometimes we just get into goblin mode and eat the whole pizza, even if we were planning on having leftovers.
Yeah, the number of slices I've been eating has been varying. Like sometimes I'll be eating 2, and sometimes I'll be eating 4, and the pie we usually get has 8.
Yep,
So
4.
it's a big difference whether I go 2 or 4.
I find that as I'm getting older, I'm hitting that point of 4 slices of pizza, if it's too late, is a recipe for heartburn and indigestion. Because I am nearing 40.
Sometimes it happens though.
Have a little red wine with it, and then it's Tums time. But
I think leftover wise, there are some foods, right, that are like, good as leftover. And
we could do like a tiering of leftovers.
Yeah, like there's some foods that like they don't reheat well. It's like, yeah, okay, you got some leftover whatever it is, but it's like, what are you gonna do with it, right? It's like,
well, that's like the bottom rank, unleftoverables.
Yeah, you have some food that's left over, but it's like, how you gonna reheat that? It's kind of, what are you gonna
well, that's the transformative nature. Like there are foods that you cannot really reheat to be the same thing again. Like fried chicken, you cannot reheat fried chicken to the same level of like expected quality, but you can use fried chicken to do something in a dish that is not just fried chicken. Like I'll scrape the chicken off with a fork and like mix it up into something and cook it like in an omelet or make a sandwich out of it. But I won't try to reheat the fried chicken to then bite into a drumstick.
Oh, I mean, I will do that, but I just won't expect it to taste and be as crispy as it was originally. But I will use the toaster oven and it will be much crispier than it would have been using microwave.
Nah. But like the S tier, the foods that are the easiest to reheat where the quality is similar to, or if in some cases identical to the original, pizza, as long as you do it right, pizza reheats so well. Just do not
make a real hot oven.
Make your oven like however hot, unless you know the temperature. My advice is simple. However hot you think you need your oven to be for pizza to reheat it, just make it hotter than that and put it in for a shorter time than you think is necessary.
Just watch it, and when you see the cheese move, like you're good.
As soon as the cheese is bubbling a little bit, take it out. It's good to go. Like 400 degrees, that's pretty good, but you could go hotter.
Yeah, 500, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, high temperature, short time. That is the way to do pizza. The only alternative way to reheat a pizza, but it's a pain in the ass, is to put it on like a cast iron griddle. That actually works pretty well too.
That works too, because it's basically a pizza.
Microwave turns leftover pizza into just disgusting poison.
Yep, pretty much.
The cheese turns like kind of translucent. It gets like slimy and chewy. And so many people make the mistake of doing the low. A lot of people generally with leftovers will try to do low temperature long time because it feels like you can't.
The danger zone that we talked about.
Yep. Not only is it the danger zone, but the bacteria, but 2, that feels safe. Because like in a sous vide, I can't overcook it. You can definitely overcook things at a low temperature for a long time. Put a slice of pizza in an oven at like 300 for an hour and see what comes out of your oven. You're not going to want to eat that thing.
Way too dry.
Yep.
Way too dry.
But like Indian food in particular, but also a lot of like Chinese dishes, like that, like kind of takeout delivery Chinese in America at least. The best way to reheat it, in my opinion, is to put it in a saucepan with some oil, and again, high temperature, short amount of time.
It depends,
Unless it's a saucy thing, like a soupy saucy thing, then just reheat it like you would a sauce. I never want to put that stuff in the microwave usually.
That is you hate a microwave for any use, but actually that is the use of a microwave.
It depends on what's in the dish, because if the dish has a significant amount of inconsistent thicknesses or ingredients, like an Indian dish that is a sauce with large chunks of chicken in it, the chicken will get dried out even as the sauce gets overcooked in a microwave. But if it's just like a sog with nothing else in it, the microwave can actually do it pretty well because you don't have these like inconsistent areas.
You just got to do like 30-second mix if you're really worried about that.
But that will not solve the problem of if the chunks of chicken meat are too large, they will dry out. They also will not get hot enough in the center in a microwave.
Bust it up in advance.
But if you don't want to bust it up, you could just put the whole thing in a saucepan and let it steam for a while. It'll taste way better. It'll work faster.
A lot less work, and you don't have to clean a saucepan.
Saucepan goes in the dishwasher.
I usually don't put the pans in the dishwasher.
Why? They just work.
There's not enough room in there for all dishes.
I got it.
Run it 2 times.
You don't have to run it 2 times. What the hell? What are you doing?
You have to run it once because the stuff, not all the things would fit in one shot.
How many things are you generating from it's one saucepan? Just one little saucepan.
Yeah, but that means the dishwasher would fill much more frequently if I was putting large things in.
One saucepan takes the space of 4 cups.
It's got that big long handle on it. It takes
the long handle. I can just put stuff over the handle. The handle doesn't actually impede the water at all.
No, it doesn't impede the water, but it impedes. I can't put a plate where the handle is.
Yeah, but I can put other cups over where that handle is.
I guess my dishwasher, just the sticks on the racks in the dishwasher are not great for putting large.
I might be lucky. Our dishwasher, the sticks are really. When we first moved into this apartment, it was a weird layout.
You can adjust some of the sticks in our dishwasher, which is handy. But you can't adjust them in a small area. It's you adjust it and you've adjusted half the rack. Right? So.
I guess it's a total aside, but I remember when we moved into this apartment, I remember thinking the layout in our dishwasher is weird. It wasn't like any other dishwasher I'd ever seen or used. It's just kind of weird. But it seems like it's just better. It's way easier to cram it full of stuff and everything cleans just fine.
I mean, I can cram it full of stuff. I usually just don't put big old pans in there. I just put every plate we own instead.
But some things require specific technique to reheat well. If you have just a biryani and you try to put that in a microwave, it's going to get dried out and weird.
You could add a little water.
Yeah, if you add a little water and put it in a microwave, it will reheat in a very inconsistent way. And you'll literally run into peas that are still cool while there are pieces of rice that are effectively burned.
So you got to do 30 seconds and then stir it, and do 30 seconds and stir it.
Yeah. What I've found... what I do now and what I've done for some time.
3 minutes in the microwave, then the whole thing is so hot, nothing's uneven.
Nah, I just look online to find professional chefs and their advice for how to reheat different kinds of things, and I make a very simple evaluation. Is the method they describe too much of a pain in the ass? And does the result significantly different from the shitty way I might have done it otherwise? And that's how I decide how to reheat different things.
The one thing is that in a fancy restaurant, right, they have those little it's sort of like the little broiler that hangs from the top, right? And it's just you can just slot something in. I forget what that's called. It's it's basically a little broiler, but it's just got a little slit opening, basically, a little hatch that opens in the front. It's above, it's not below, with your oven, right? And that is a super good way to reheat stuff or keep stuff hot, especially a piece of meat or something. It's those things are way good, but you don't have one of those.
Yep. Convection ovens are really good for reheating stuff too. Way better than an oven for many purposes, except pizza.
But obviously. They could also dry things out. So you can,
Yep. But you can get away with shorter time in a convection oven for reasons depending on the dish. A samosa in a convection oven will reheat pretty well, actually.
Yeah, that's a good use for it because it's a fried thing to begin with, right?
Exactly.
So something. It's a lot of people call the convection oven an air fryer, which I think is, I think that should be illegal.
I remember being so mad about that. I just always assumed that air fryers would mist something with hot oil in some way, just use less oil. Then when I learned that it's nothing.
Yeah, it's nothing. But if you have an already fried thing, like a samosa, right, or French fries, and you put them into an air fryer or a convection
they got you.
Right? Yeah, they got me. If you put it into a convection oven, it's it's already been fried. That's going to actually be a decent way to reheat it and maintain its crispy nature.
Yeah. So in terms of the food safety thing, one thing that I never did when I was younger, but I do now, because I learned a lot more about food safety, is that most leftovers, you actually got to reheat that shit all the way to about 160, or you might take in a significant bacterial load.
Yep.
That is something I never used. I used to just heat things until they were warm enough, and sometimes I even eat things cold. But now I do. When I reheat leftovers, I use a meat thermometer, and I actually make sure I got it to a safe temperature long enough to kill whatever might be in it.
Mm. Something else is if you depending on what you're cooking, right, you might be able to increase the food quality and safety perhaps as well by preparing knowing it's going to be a leftover, right? So
Yeah.
let's say you want to make a chicken parm, right? So most of the work of the chicken parm is frying the chicken, right?
Fry a
So
few
let's say
extra
you got
chicken.
so you pound out and fry, say like 4 chicken boobs, right? And you can only gonna eat 1 chicken boob, and you got 3 extra chicken boobs, right? So you're only gonna eat 1 right now. So put some sauce and melt some cheese on that 1 right now that you're gonna eat. Don't sauce and cheese the other 3,
Yep.
right?
Same
Put
point.
those in,
You want to make
put
a
those shit
salad
away.
and have salad leftovers? Don't put the croutons in the whole salad because they're going to turn into just mush if you put that salad in the fridge.
Exactly. So you make the salad, right? But you don't put the crouton in there, right? That way, you only put the crouton in at the table and you're going to have a better leftover salad experience. You
Exactly.
might not even want to put dressing in the salad in advance, right? Only put it at the table.
The other thing that I do now, I learned this when I worked in restaurants, but I started applying it to my own life several years ago, and it's actually helped a lot. Because if you adequately crash cool something, like if you like a proper leftover, you cooked it, and now you want to just put the whole thing away. Consumer fridges can't actually cool things down that quickly. And in fact, if you put something that's too warm in your fridge, it might make other things that are next to it in your fridge unsafe in a way you don't realize.
Depend,
No,
usually just
consumer fridges, like,
I mean, it's possible, but it's like, yeah, you put one little container of food in there that, is a
well,
little
here's an
bit
example.
warm,
If you have a
it's
whole pot of hot soup and you put it in the
Yeah,
fridge
that would be-
and it's next to your milk's probably fucked.
Yes, that would be a bad situation. But I think most of the time you're putting in like a little reusable container with some stuff in it. That's fine.
Yeah, if it's a little, I
It's
guess
the-
if it's a larger amount of leftovers.
Giant, still hot, cauldron of chicken soup into
Yep.
the fridge. Right. Yeah, you're gonna significantly cause some trouble.
But here's the sort of the rocket fuel equation. If you let a larger thing, like say you ate half a casserole, you want to put the other half in the fridge. If you let it sit out until it's cool enough to safely put in the fridge, it's been in the danger zone too long. There's too much bacteria like growing in there. But if you put it right in the fridge, it's going to fuck up your fridge for like 4 hours. The way to do it is there's 2 techniques that I learned from professional chefs. One, you take whatever it's in, like say it's a big pot of soup, dump it out into another pot that is at room temperature.
Yep, there's a lot of heat in the pot. And
Exactly.
You can just get rid of all that heat instantly.
And then you just put that second pot right in the fridge. Or number 2, take that second pot and stick it in a bowl of ice water and let it sit there outside of your fridge for like 10 minutes first to crash cool it, to get it through the danger zone as fast as possible before you put it in the fridge.
Yeah, I basically never put anything in the fridge in its like original container. I have these like reusable glass lock things.
Yep.
It's basically just
We got the same
glass food
things.
container with a plastic lid that snaps on, and
They're
it also
great.
has they also have a little hole that you can open and close, and that's really useful because that way you can just open the hole and put it in the microwave, and then or close the hole and put it in the fridge and whatnot.
Yep.
And then, or you can take it with you to eat if you actually go to a work or something. That kind of thing.
Yep. And I guess in terms of like the thing that I think everyone does is there'll be a leftover that you like, it might be safe to eat, but you're not 100% sure. So you choose to just not eat it and you eat something else instead, but you don't throw it away yet. And then a couple days later, well, now it's definitely bad. And then you feel a lot better about throwing it out. I feel like that's a pattern.
Yeah, we had a recent meal. It was the Sunbasket box, right? And the meal came with these 2 sweet potatoes, and they were fucking huge sweet potatoes. And the way it had me cook the sweet potatoes was a good way, but I think the proportions were way off. I had to it was like, we're mixing honey in there to sweeten them up and stuff, right? And I added more honey because they were so big, but it still kind of wasn't enough. And we kind of got full, and there was still a lot of potato left. So I put the sweet potato, back in the fridge, right, in a different container. But it's like there was no opportunity to just eat some sweet potato.
Yep. Like that's got to be like a side dish to another whole meal.
Right. It's like we would have had to, we were unexpected to have them, and there was no plan to make something to go with them. Right. And we were eating other things that were planned to eat. And so the sweet potato had to go. It outlived its welcome, sadly. Right.
My rule
it was-
now is basically 48 hours, or if I look in the fridge and I want to eat a leftover, but I balk at all, like I feel it's like, oh, I wonder if it's actually still safe. If my instinct is I don't want to eat it right now and I choose to eat something else, I assume I should just throw it away because it's going to be like the banana that never gets turned into banana bread at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I think we killed enough time. We went a little over. I think we can end the show now.
Okay, good. I got to go eat some food.
As
and
do
there's
I.
nothing left over.
I think it was a good show.